Welcome to the Haunted Hangover podcast. I'm Louie, and in this episode, I'm joined by a special guest, George Streicher, the composer of Music of the Macabre, an excellent Halloween album. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
We're new friends on social media, correct? How did this happen? I was trying to figure it out because did you friend me? Did I follow you? I don't even know the circumstances of this.
I don't remember. I think you did reach out to me, and I'm always happy to go on these Halloween podcasts and talk all things Halloween and music and whatnot.
Yeah, there aren't a lot of Halloween-centric podcasts out there. Yeah. Very, very few and far between. And even people now kind of producing entire albums that are Halloween-centric or Halloween-themed. In your case, your album is Halloween-themed. Mm-hmm. There aren't many people doing that these days. Kind of you get EPs here and there, and you get kind of reissues of old stuff and things like that. But outside of maybe, and we're going to get into it, haunted house music, you don't really get like an album that's telling a story, the full package, the entire presentation that you're kind of putting together with your album, Music of the Macabre. There's not a lot of that. Now, for the listeners that might not know, what is Music of the Macabre?
Well, Music of the Macabre was an album that I wrote for Halloween, essentially. Like you said, I also realized that there was not a lot of Halloween albums out there, new ones.
Contemporary, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Usually all you'd see is, maybe some ambient music, some sound effect stuff. Or music-wise, most of the albums that exist are re-recordings of the classical repertoire, which is like Night on Bald Mountain and Toccata and Fugue and Dance Macabre, all that stuff. Things that have been attributed to Halloween, but aren't necessarily written for Halloween. Or film scores that are just kind of, repurposed for, spooky music. So I thought, there really isn't, or I guess I could also mention like surf monster rock stuff, like songs. That's all out there.
That stuff's awesome, man.
It is. Totally different genre.
Yeah.
But I realized there really isn't any original orchestral music written for Halloween specifically, not just kind of afterthought. Yeah, this is spooky. We'll assign this to Halloween. So that was sort of my goal. And not only was it a tremendously nostalgic endeavor, and the album certainly is dripping in nostalgia, but I wanted to try and fill that void album-wise.
And I think you did a fantastic job. And I'll give you a compliment here. And this is not to throw any shade at other composers, musicians. So in 2024, and I'd say in the last 10 years, 85% of Halloween or horror music is synthwave, 100%. It's all synthwave inspired. John Carpenter is what they're trying to mimic. So I think it's refreshing to listen to your album where you're as far away from that as possible. Like you're not. There's not a single kind of synth melody in your album. And I thought that was really interesting, especially nowadays where it's really like everything. It's come up on on the show here before. We've talked about, I've had synthwave artists on and stuff like that before that love Halloween. And it's like everyone's trying to do that style of music, because of the original Halloween, John Carpenter. And I love that shit. Yeah. I'm not knocking it. But
for sure. It's fantastic.
I love that you're kind of staying away from that. Was that just like a conscious, like, did you specifically want to be completely different from that, like those genre, like that genre, those musicians?
Absolutely, that was a big consideration because I think a lot too because of Stranger Things and the resurgence of that kind of '80s nostalgia and that style, which is pretty cool and welcome. And then you have a lot of these other. The other side of that is this modern horror stuff, which is way more textural, not melodic. It's sort of sound designy things, where people will build these elaborate contraptions that make all kinds of noises and spooky stuff, and that's all amazing. But like you said, everyone's kind of doing it because that's what's popular and it's what people get hired to do a lot for. But I missed the music like from Hocus Pocus, like John Debney's amazing score for that, which is very much doing a kind of Berlioz and who did Symphonie Fantastique, that kind of romantic, impressionistic era orchestral stuff. And obviously scores like Harry Potter or scores like The Witches of Eastwick and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I missed that really romantic, sweeping orchestral sound of Halloween that I kind of grew up with. And I sort of wanted to recapture that and avoid the more kind of modern trappings of horror scores, as it were. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you dabbled with any synth retro wave type stuff at all?
A little bit. I have a piece of mine called, well, I wouldn't even call it synthwave. It's called generic 90s TV.
I saw that. I was going to bring that up. I was like,
it's been licensed quite a bit for trailers and
I'm sure.
And that's the one cheesy, but that wasn't trying to be cool. I was trying to be cheesy, like an old vacation video or something, like a promo.
Yeah.
But that's probably as close as I've gotten to that.
Yeah. I noticed that when I was on your like Spotify page, and I was just for this episode checking out all your stuff, and I was like, "When 90s sitcom," I clicked on it. I was like, there it is. There's that style of music that most people these days people are looking for, that for commercials, for film, for
Tim and
anything.
Eric.
Yeah, exactly. Like stuff like that. It's so going back to like your album. That's what I thought was so different, where you stand out from everything else, especially with Halloween, which I'm sure it's both it's different for you and it allows you to stand out, but I'm sure it's also a little frustrating because people are looking for the like synth heavy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've been really surprised at how many people have like they responded to it the same way you have, where it does stand out and it is refreshing. And I hope that it doesn't only appeal to people in my age group, which is 90s kids.
Yeah.
Who I hope it's not just a nostalgia hit. I hope other people are discovering it as maybe a fresh look at a fresh sound to Halloween that's other than what they're used to. But I mean, I'm not frustrated because I'll be honest. I don't think I could really do that synthwave stuff. That's a whole other level of production and musicianship that I just I've never really explored. So they do something I can't do, and I'm just going to do what I can do.
Hey, man, it's an oversaturated market. Don't. so
it is.
You're doing something right, man. No. Funny enough, one of my co-hosts, Dave, who's not here, obviously, he's a composer as well.
Oh, cool.
And his stuff is it leans a little more towards synth, but he doesn't like to call himself synth wave or anything like the retro wave because he's like, again, it's way too many people doing that. He leans more towards kind of just dark, atmospheric. A lot of Twin Peaks inspiration.
Oh, sure,
and stuff like that. So and he's scored a lot of my projects. Our main theme here is him. He's
nice.
The one that our main Haunted Hangover theme that we've had since the beginning. It's Dave's piece of music. So again, we all have. I think it all warms our hearts to hear that type of stuff. But it's cool to see other composers just kind of producing different types of music. Now, as far as inspiration for you, is Danny Elfman any type of inspiration for you at all? I figured, because even listening to your album, everyone. I think if you're a composer, it's like that's what everyone kind of goes for. And I feel like in your album, track to track, I could see kind of different, I guess, musicians. Again, I'm not a musician, so I'm probably not saying the right words here, but I can see just kind of how you craft a song and how maybe you're taking pieces of this artist and this composer, etc., and kind of melding it all together. What are some of your inspirations, especially with this album? What, you mentioned the Hocus Pocus score. So like, what are some other inspirations for you?
Oh man, yeah, it's definitely varied. John Williams is a huge influence on me.
He's like the king, man, of
you can't
scores.
Write for an orchestra without being influenced by John Williams because he's,
of course,
the greatest film composer in the last, like 40 years or something. Like he's
still doing it, which is insane.
That's unbelievable. I hope to have the energy. And
guy's
mind.
Almost like closer to 100 than like,
he is. I think he's insane. 94 or something.
It's insane. It's insane, man.
So he's a huge influence. He's done, and his career is so diverse. Like he's, you know, the Witches of a lot of scores that most people aren't familiar with that he's done that have influenced music, other film scores so much, like The Witches of Eastwick. Another composer would be James Horner.
Okay.
Big time. His work for Casper and the work for a smaller Disney movie, Something Wicked This Way Comes.
It's a great movie. Both
great movie.
Great. Yeah.
Really creepy score.
Yeah.
Really like spooky stuff. And I was definitely influenced by that a little bit. Danny Elfman, of course, you can't talk about Halloween, certainly not Halloween music, without talking about Danny Elfman. He's been the king of that for 30 years or something. So yeah, those guys, and then obviously classical composers like Chopin or Grieg, you know, all the guys that we all hear, you know, Bach, obviously.
Yeah.
All those guys that did that spooky music back then that hasn't left. It hasn't left us. It's all still with us.
Were those guys intentionally trying to make it spooky? I don't know.
Oh yeah.
You think
for
so?
Some of them, for sure. You know, Symphonie Fantastique is that creepy one where Dies Irae is quoted. Like he's definitely trying to be spooky. Night on Bald Mountain, of course.
Yeah.
Dance Macabre is like one of the most fun, you know, kind of playfully macabre pieces ever. And then once you start leaving the Romantic era, the Impressionistic era, you start getting into modern concert music of like the 20th century, and you get like Penderecki and you get Bartok, and they're being deliberately freaky, and that's where all that, you know, the Shining music comes from. But I haven't quite touched on that yet. but yeah, all those guys, huge inspirations on all the music.
And now getting into this, so you've scored films too, right? Because I think I noticed there's like animated stuff is what I
have. Yeah, I've done a
H.P.
handful
Lovecraft project. I think you were involved with. What was
I've done
that?
a
How was
handful
that?
of features. You know, those were fun. Those were early on in my sort of little music career. In my 20s, I don't know, maybe 25 or something like that. So those were really fun. They're, you know, smaller budget movies. So I got to use some live musicians and stuff, but I can't really listen to that stuff because I was figuring it out back then.
Hey, dude.
Yeah, I'm sure you feel that way about the podcast too.
I'm a film. I was a filmmaker first, and like I'm all, you know, for the most part, it's all independent film, micro budgeted stuff, feature films, short films, all that good stuff. So, you know, I'm assuming we kind of come from the same background where we kind of figured things out as we went along.
Absolutely, yeah.
Same thing with Haunted Hangover. I'm still figuring things out as I continue to do this show. So it's an evolution kind of as you go on. Are you self-taught, or did you go to school for this, or how did that all come about?
I actually started as a filmmaker too.
Oh wow!
I made a lot of short films and stuff, but I was always musical. You know, I took piano lessons when I was younger. I played cello in the orchestra in middle school. I was not a disciplined musician by any measure. I was in like a rock band in high school and stuff. So but it was always around, and and obviously technology afforded me opportunities to, you know, really explore it. And it wasn't until my mid-20s that I started taking classes and taking. I didn't go to school for music necessarily, but I have taken courses and classes, so I've sort of built my own education, and a lot of it has been self-taught, a lot of it, but you know, I've taken classes on orchestration and classes on composition and obviously, you know, theory and all that stuff. So I didn't go to a conservatory per se, but I am somewhat educated in music.
That's cool.
Yeah, so, you know, always could do more, and I probably will continue to take classes.
It's how it, me too, man. You're constantly learning. Like I said,
it's the best. If you love it, if you love it, it's nothing. And this album, I learned so much from. Obviously, I've had a lot of experience up till that point, but working with an orchestra and writing for an orchestra and developing these different pieces, and then working on a session and being able to, you know, because you talk to the orchestra through the booth and everything and give them notes. So I learned a lot from doing this alone. So that in itself was going to music school for me.
It's so interesting because some of these things you're telling me, I'm like, I wouldn't even know how to even do that. Like it's so foreign to me. Just
it's a lot.
Like orchestra, I can't imagine. Like I honestly don't. I have no clue how that even works. It's one of those things where, like, as someone that doesn't compose music at all, I look at it and I'm like, what's going on here? You know,
Sure.
what's this person do? You know, so I think it's really cool. It's cool that you kind of figured it out,
Oh,
and
thanks,
you know,
man.
and you put together this album, which I'll say here, it's an excellent. It's about 25 minutes, correct?
Yeah,
The
just
album,
about.
and it's great stuff, man. It's a easy listen. And I'm gonna point out some tracks here that stood out to me. There's 3 tracks. I jot them down here in my notes that were my favorite. I really love the Autumn Wind, I believe.
Sure. Yeah.
It's a violin, correct? Just like a simple. Is that a violin? What is
It's
that?
a cello, yeah, cello and
Cello.
piano. Yeah, it's all right.
Obviously, I have no clue. See, there you go.
No worries.
I love that, and you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the Haunted Mansion, like a
Sure.
set piece in the. I love the Haunted Mansion. Love that ride. Been going since
Yeah.
I was a kid. So like it reminds me of what would be maybe a section or a scene or a room on that
Yeah,
attraction. Like,
the
you know,
music
and
room.
yeah, exactly. I love that, and and it's really kind of minimalist, which I can appreciate. I tend to be someone when it comes to music, even though I'm all over the place when it comes to stuff I listen to, but I like when things are a little more minimalist and not kind of overproduced, I guess is the
Sure,
right word
yeah,
to say.
smaller ensemble. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then the correct like, Samhain or Sam Hain, as some people say,
Yeah.
that's another really great track you have
Oh,
there.
cool.
Just really spooky vibes. I love the build up. That one, I guess, what I compared it to listening to it, and you tell me maybe I'm completely wrong here, but it was reminiscent of like the score in Sleepy Hollow. That's kind of what
Sure.
I love that movie, the Tim Burton
Yeah.
film. What was that, 98, I think? 97, 98, around that time?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
That's kind of what it reminded me of. And remember, I'm going in blind. I just listening to
Yeah.
this album and just kind of the vibes I got. And then the other track I really like was The Haunted House. I believe is that an organ that you had being played?
At the beginning, yeah.
Okay, there you go, yeah.
Cheesy pipe organ, yeah.
Which is perfect for a haunted house. Like it's
Of
what you
course.
would think when you think of like a haunted attraction or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you listen to any of that like Midnight Syndicate, Nox Arcania, whatever type stuff at all?
I've definitely heard it. When I was a kid, I grew up in the 90s, so we definitely
Yeah.
had some Midnight Syndicate CDs.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever really like listened to them from, wall to wall, but I've certainly put them on in Halloween, the atmospheric music, and of course Nox Arcana, of course. Yeah, I did a lot of
Yeah.
research before I went into writing this album or putting it together. Of like what's out there, like who are the big hitters in in Halloween music, and you can't talk about Halloween without talking about Midnight Syndicate. So, and
I
Nox
would say
Arcana.
those two are probably the kings
Absolutely.
of. I wouldn't even say Halloween music. It's more so like haunted attraction. Like
Yeah, they're like the theme park kings. They you hear them at like Six Flags, and I'm sure they play them at Knott's and stuff like that. Yeah.
Man, every haunted attraction I've been to, I think they're just playing the Midnight
Yep.
Syndicate. Like they have like that one Halloween album that's like a greatest hits.
Yeah.
It's like that album on a loop, like the same 14 tracks
Oh,
or
yeah.
something over and over again. So when I was listening to your music, I was like curious, like, oh, I wonder if he listens to like Midnight Syndicate. Or I just
Oh,
had
absolutely.
to ask just because of
Absolutely.
how popular that stuff is in the world, I guess, of Halloween and haunted attractions and stuff like that, and
Oh, yeah.
so, now speaking of Halloween
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of your love for the holiday, why is it important to you? Why do you love Halloween so much?
Oh man, that's a good question. That's a big question. I think for me right now, and one of the main reasons I wrote the album was because I love Halloween now because of how much nostalgia I have around it and how many memories I have as a kid on Halloween, growing up in Illinois, in the suburbs. When I was a kid, and probably a little bit still now, there's something. It's that safe, spooky fun about it. I was such a scaredy cat when I was younger, so Halloween really creeped me out. But at the same time, I was fascinated in it, and I loved scary movies, and I loved hearing scary stories. And for me, I think it was all about sort of turning around and giving that to someone else too, like whether it was making a spook house in our backyard and taking people through it. Being able to kind of share that experience that I had. But yeah, the album was influenced a lot by that kind of magic of being a kid and seeing Tales from the Crypt on TV during Halloween and it scaring the shit out of me, or or hearing this spooky music from the CDs that I had. It's just fun. And even as an adult, I have a huge group of friends that celebrates Halloween really, really hard. We go really hard starting in like September. And it's just fun and it's imaginative. And yeah, I don't know. I just like it a lot. I like monsters.
Man, listen, I'm right there with you. That's why I started this show. Nostalgia always plays into it for all of us.
Of course.
I think every time I've had a guest on or we've talked to some of my many co-hosts I have here, it's always nostalgia. It's always, us reminiscing about the past and what we did as kids and then kind of making new memories we can reminisce about in 20 or 30 years when we're old and gray, I guess, So I always get a kick out of that, how nostalgia, everyone says that. It's like nostalgia, when liking spooky stuff is the norm, when you can walk into a store and skeletons hanging, perfectly normal, So I love that. I love just kind of, that's everyone's answer. And it never fails to get me because it's true. It's like why we all love the holiday. And speaking of just nostalgia and share some Halloween memories. Do you have because whenever I have someone on, I always kind of hit them. I'm like, I just love hearing people's like a specific Halloween memory that sticks out to them. What's a Halloween memory that sticks out to you, or a couple if you want to share them? Go for it.
Sure. So I grew up in a town called Barrington, Illinois, which is a little northwest suburb of Chicago. Pretty idealistic, quintessential American small town feel. It was a bigger town, but it had that small old town feel. So a lot of older houses from the 1800s and whatnot, and which I'm sure you're familiar with out back east. I remember trick-or-treating through town, and all these little houses and beautiful, the leaves on the ground and all the kids, packs of kids running around in their costumes and stuff. And there's this one house that we went to, and he would always do this multiple years in a row where it was someone's dad. It was all lit in red, and it had organ music or some creepy stuff playing, or, even the classics from the Crypt CD. And he would come to the door as Dracula, like in the full thing, and he'd kind of be staring at you, and you'd take the candy, and then you'd take it and you'd leave, but then he would follow you down the steps, and he'd follow the whole group of the family down the street, and it was always really creepy because he'd just be kind of like staring with one eyebrow up kind of stuff. And I remember one year I was with I think one of my sisters was with us and her friends, and this is in the late 90s, like 96, 97. And she says, stay back, she's Buffy. And then he goes, oh, no, Buffy. And then he ran back into his house. And for some reason, that just stuck with me as such a pleasant memory because I was genuinely, creeped out by this guy, but at the same time, it, diffused the whole situation. And I think that sort of encapsulates Halloween for me, is that sort of fun terror we all get to kind of experience safely.
I love how there's always someone's dad or uncle that dresses up as Dracula and
it's
insists on scaring all the children.
Yeah, it's and it's the sense of play that he's having a great time doing this too. And you feel like everyone kind of gets to be a kid on Halloween and do whatever they want. They get to dress up, they get to scare people, they get to build an elaborate haunted house, they get to just be pleasant. It's kind of it's just a good vibe. Good vibe.
It's always a Dracula, man.
Always a Dracula.
It never fails to be a Dracula.
I will definitely be a Dracula someday.
Are there any costume memory? What was your favorite costume as a kid? Do you have a go-to, or is there just one that stands out to you? In the 90s?
There's
a lot of wild ones back then.
There were. I loved Freddy. I was always Freddy in varying degrees of success. I remember the first Freddy. I think I have a picture of it on the Music of the Macabre Instagram, actually, where it's me as Freddy. I think I got the sweater because they sold those, but it was like a costume fabric one. It wasn't very good. And it was
polyester
huge.
Or something.
Exactly.
I had that same one.
Yep. Yeah. And then I had the glove, which they had, and then I had an Indiana Jones hat because it was close enough, brown hat. And then I think I just smeared red paint on my face. I didn't really do burns and stuff. It wasn't until later in my teens that they they were selling the prosthetic.
Yes,
at Halloween stores.
We have that in common. We both
Yep.
were that.
And I, had to figure out how to do that, and it didn't really work out great.
Oh,
and,
no. It looked terrible. It
was way too big. The nose was huge. It was Robert Englund's face. Like, it's not going to fit on a child's face.
That's the funny thing is that was for adults. But kids wanted it, so they should have had two sizes of that prosthetic.
They should have had
it
a child
been
size,
for children, for adults. But it was only for adults. So if you're like 10, it's like literally it wraps around your face.
Yeah,
It's just
and your
horrible.
parents aren't going to buy the $70 or $100 latex mask that you pull over your head, like. So that was a costume I was always trying to be Freddy, and then eventually, as the years went on, I think the costumes got better. They had an actual sweater, they had a metal glove that I got, and the mask, prosthetic, and everything. Yeah,
it's funny because it's come up on the show before where we talk about costumes. How back then, costumes for characters we loved, Freddy, Michael Myers, whatever, Jason, the typical Leatherface, the standard like slashers that all 12-year-olds want to be, especially in the 90s. They were not accurate at all. And kids, these like nowadays, they get the most accurate costumes. Yeah. It's amazing. Like you look at some of these, like the Freddy replica glove, sweater, the mask. It looks just like Robert Englund. Like it's screen accurate,
Yeah.
And it's wild that back then we were suffering just like throwing some paint on our face or like even making our own or buying a sweater that was like black and red, not green and red. That was close enough. So these kids they won't know the struggle. The struggle was real.
Yeah. And I did the same with Indiana Jones of just kind of cobbling. Well, I have like a plaid jacket. That's good enough. And I have a jump rope and a cowboy hat or whatever. Yeah. So I was like, whatever you could do to,
It's wild too if you go to like Spirit Halloween now, and when you go to like the Halloween Michael Myers section, they've got the standard adult size, but now they also sell a mask that fits a child. Like, it's crazy. Yep. Like a 9-year-old can dress up as Michael Myers.
That's wild.
It's crazy to think that back then we'd just look really silly. Just with these oversized masks.
Wasn't there. Yeah, I don't know. It's like
it's so funny.
Clearly they realized the demand and capitalized on it because holy cow, yeah.
I think just people around our age, maybe a little older even, just now have their own companies where they can license these things. Same thing with T-shirts, records, albums, things like that. They can just basically re-release this stuff and they know they can market it to everyone from children to adults. Like it's everyone can dress up as a serial killer in 2024. So fun times. I thought it'd be fun for us to talk a little bit about I said to you off air, desert island Halloween albums, but knowing that both of us are huge fans of Halloween, and I'm sure there's several albums we would consider desert island. Sure. I said, you know what? We'll just, for the sake of the episode, it'll be desert island Halloween albums, but I think these are just Halloween albums that we love and kind of inspired us, or we just can listen to every year to us. And this is all subjective, especially I think more so my picks, because I'm sure there's people that are like, that doesn't count, Louis. That's not a Halloween album technically, but whatever. That's how we roll here at Haunted Hangover. But George, you're the guest, so I want you to hit us with your first pick.
Sure. My first pick was the biggest inspiration for music of the Macabre. It's the oldest Halloween CD I remember owning, and I remember buying it at Best Buy with my dad in 96 or something, and it's called Classics from the Crypt.
Nice.
And it's Arthur Fiedler and the Boston Pops, and it's got all the classics, Toccata and Fugue, Dance Macabre, all that stuff. And it's pretty spooky. There's some pretty spooky stuff on here. Oh yeah, the Funeral March of a Marionette, which is the Hitchcock Presents theme.
Yeah.
But I love the artwork on it with the Phantom. I think that's the one of the 50s Phantom of the Opera movie.
Yeah, it's
there.
the fifth. It's I believe that's the Claude Rains.
Claude
Phantom of
Rains,
the
yep,
Opera. Yeah,
absolutely.
We're currently covering the Universal monster movies here at Haunted
Oh,
Hangover.
nice.
All of them. We're going through all of them. We're only about 4 films deep at the time of this recording. But
Oh man, I hope it's going well.
it's going. It's a slow process because there are a lot of films.
And you get to those mummy movies and you're just falling asleep.
Dude, some of them, yeah. It's funny enough, I haven't seen all of them, but there's some that I have seen, kind of the more famous ones, the iconic ones.
Sure.
And then some of the deeper cut ones, yeah. Don't watch them too late. Got to watch those when you wake up. That's a morning watch.
That's a coffee watch.
Yes. Big cup of coffee and wide awake. You need all the lights turned on or you'll doze off. So back to this album. I did not grow up listening to this.
Yeah.
Funny enough. So wait, so when you were a kid, did you have the CD or the cassette? Because I did notice, I think I might have seen a cassette version of this on eBay.
Oh,
or maybe I'm confusing it with something else, possibly.
If there's a cassette version, I would love it. I think it's only on CD.
Oh, really?
I think it was.
Okay. What year was it again?
It's 92, so they might have had a cassette. Those were definitely still around.
On the subject of Halloween albums, I'm always on the hunt for. Lately, my thing has been cassettes. You know, I have a player and stuff like that. I collect records, obviously, too. But I'm like, so I Googled this and I thought I saw a cassette version of it or images of it or what I saw, I think, online.
Oh, I need to
I
get
did
it
not
then.
grow up listening to this one. So this was new to me. I did play it, some good stuff on it. And I could see how this is an inspiration to you, like specifically to you, just by kind of what you're composing. And you listened to 92. Wow. So you were small, I'm guessing, when you were tiny.
Well, I think it came out in 92. I think we bought it in like 95, 96 or something. Because it was just at Best Buy back, RIP, physical media at Best Buy. I remember buying it so specifically and I would listen to it all the time, like not even on Halloween. It was just something so creepy about it and cool about it. And obviously orchestra music enchanted me a lot. But yeah, this would play in our haunted house. We would build a haunted house every year in our backyard playhouse, and this was the go-to music. Just put it on and just let it loop.
There you go. Just like every haunted house with Midnight Syndicate. There you go. Yeah. Now with this album, do you? And this is a question that I think is kind of funny. And while we're talking about an album that inspired you, do you have like your own Halloween playlist that you put together, or any tracks from this album on that?
Oh, absolutely. The whole thing is on there. My favorite tracks, I think it's the best performance of Dance Macabre that I've heard.
Oh, wow.
And I love, the Sorcerer's Apprentice is on here too. That's such a great, whimsical, kind of magical piece. And Night on Bald Mountain is really good on this one too. But yeah, Dance Macabre, I've listened to a lot of variations of that, different performances of it, and this still stands out as the best to me.
I believe Night on Bolt Mountain, that song, is it in Earthworm Jim too? In one of the levels? I think
probably.
When you fight the little devil cat guy.
That
his
makes
name.
sense. Yeah.
He's the little cat with he looks like the devil.
Yep.
He's like in hell, basically. I think it's that, and I also think it's in Saturday Night Fever when they're on the bridge. I think
probably.
I think
public
that's
domain. So
so it's one of those go-to sinister sounding songs.
Absolutely.
That you
it's
hear.
a
and
spooky one.
Yeah,
and it's interesting about that.
It's in those. I'm pretty sure it's the song I'm thinking of.
So Night on Bald Mountain was written by Mussorgsky, and there's two versions. Like it was originally called Night on Bear Mountain.
Okay.
And there's that version out there that orchestras will perform occasionally. But then Rimsky-Korsakov reorchestrated it, I think because he felt like he just a better version. And that's the one that we know is the really. And he kind of rearranged it too, and that's the better version. So it's really interesting that these two kind of titans of this 19th
Here's
century
a way to confirm
composing.
that I'm not confusing the songs. How familiar are you with the Toxic Avenger?
Oh, pretty.
Is that
familiar.
the song that's playing when he's turning into the Toxic Avenger and he goes into the tub and he's all burning? I'm pretty sure.
It might be. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
A version of it because you said it's in public domain. So
I'm sure.
The mountain part is what's getting me. I'm pretty sure this song has been rearranged and has been featured in a bunch of different stuff as like a sinister kind of imposed like song, like again, Earthworm Jim, one of the Earthworm Jims.
Earthworm Jim, man.
I'm pretty
That's a
sure
deep cut.
Oh, dude, I love those games. So
Yeah.
Earthworm Jim fan here.
Funny you should mention,
yeah.
by the way, my 90s TV music track was in the trailer for the new Toxic Avenger movie.
Really?
Yeah. They licensed the cheesy. It's like during some horrible gore fest scene, and it's playing this like cheesy 90s infomercial music. It's really great. So,
How does that make you feel, man? Just like
awesome.
Okay,
Awesome.
perfect.
I love it.
Like,
I'm
because
like,
you know, as a filmmaker, as like an indie filmmaker, whether it's a short film, a feature film, we we tend, if we can't afford. Luckily, I've got Dave who he's composed all of my projects. So
Nice.
He's usually like the go-to because he's one of my close friends. He's a part of Haunted Hangover. I'm like, hey Dave, here's a rough cut. You know, like
Yeah.
hit me with some music. So we're able to do that. But every now and then you gotta kind of get on YouTube and look for some royalty-free stuff because you need it for a specific scene, or you need just kind of like you need a little piece of something for something, and you got to look for it, you know? So,
it's crazy to me that
you like that. You're cool with that. Like you.
Oh,
like
I mean,
that?
they license it from me because they have
obviously,
to.
yeah.
But it flatters me to no end that like people want to use it, and it's I wrote that like over 10 years ago in my 20s, like broke in my 20s, sitting in my little, room / office with a roommate at my computer. And then now it's at over half, or it was like almost, it's 500,000 views now. I think 600,000 or whatever. It just keeps going up, and people keep licensing it in commercials and trailers, and I'm like, why? It was in a movie. It was in the what was it called? The Machine, the Burt Kreischer comedy movie.
Oh,
with Mark
I think
Hamill.
I know what you're talking about.
They used it in that, and I was like, I don't know who this is, but this is really cool.
Hey guys, I have other stuff you could use too.
Oh my god! I mean, that's the hope someday that someone wants to make a Halloween movie. But no, it's
coming,
really,
man.
I
it's
love
coming,
it.
dude. It's coming, man. Someone's
thanks,
out
man.
there.
I hope so.
It's
But
coming.
it's awesome.
Dude.
I love it. No, I never gets old. I'm never like jaded by it at all. It's cool. Anybody wants to use it. It's awesome.
But yeah, man, back to the album you picked. That's a good pick. I honestly will have to listen to it more since this was new to me. This was a new discovery.
Yeah.
I might have to add it to some playlist in the future. Some Halloween
It's a great
plays
one.
I have a like 15-hour long Halloween playlist that's just for me. Like
That's awesome.
It's like my playlist. And then we've got the Haunted Hangover one, but that's picks that Dave and I put together every year in an episode. It's our annual Halloween mixtape episode.
Oh, I love that.
Definitely got to listen to this album again and maybe pick a song in the future that fits kind of something that we're doing. So, yeah, man, good stuff. Definitely going to have to check it out and recommend it to people that maybe didn't grow up listening to it.
Yeah, it's a great little kind of diamond in the rough, for sure.
All right, so my first pick. Now, I will be honest here. And, George, I don't think you even know this. I don't think even some of the listeners probably have no idea. So, Dave and I did a live stream, I'd say, during the pandemic on Instagram. This was when everyone was at home stuck, bored, watching, when people actually watched Instagram lives. People are barely doing that nowadays, but this is when everyone was watching. So him and I did a similar kind of Halloween albums situation, but I felt I should recycle one of my picks and officially put it into an episode. So I'm going to go with that one first. So if any of the listeners remember, and there's probably like 3 of you that remember that live stream, sorry for being redundant here in my pick, but I don't care. I love this album. And that is the 1981 album from Rocky Erickson and the Aliens, The Evil One. Now, George, are you familiar with this album at all?
Not at all, but I love the title.
Okay. So I'll be honest, Rocky Erickson, I'm not going to get into it here. Interesting guy. He kind of, I guess like psychedelic rock is the genre to kind of describe the type of music he made. Probably his most known song for horror fans is Burn the Flames from Return of the Living Dead. I don't know if you remember that scene.
Sure,
that scene
yeah.
Forget the character's name. He's in front of the incinerator, the crematorium or whatever. He's sitting there and he's putting himself into it because he's turning into a zombie. That song, Burn the Flames, is Rocky Erickson. That song's not on this album, The Evil One, which I will show. Here it is.
Nice.
This is a reissue. This is not an original pressing. I believe this is from 2015, I think is when I picked this up from Light in the Attic Records. Excellent album. I listen to it every Halloween, and we just talked about Halloween playlist. I guarantee if I were to look through my playlist, I'd probably just select all, add to playlist because of how much I love this album. Now, the reason why, and I will admit, technically, this is not a Halloween album. This is technically, I don't think Rocky Erickson, when they wrote this, he was like, you know what, man, this is gonna be, and they were probably on something when when they were writing this one. I highly doubt he was telling himself this is a Halloween album or a horror adjacent album, whichever way you want to define it. But when you listen to it, and I'm going to rattle off a couple of track names here. Listen to these. If You Have Ghost, Night of the Vampire, Creature with the Atom Brain, I Walked with a Zombie, Stand for the Fire Demon. Every single song is about creatures, monsters, the devil, Satan, ghost, zombies, vampires. And for me, it's like it just is tailor-made for someone that loves Halloween. There's a certain atmosphere it just gives you. And I'd recommend anyone that maybe, like you said you'd never heard of this, give it a listen. I will admit it's probably not everyone's cup of tea. It's kind of, again, psychedelic rock. I can't really, it's hard to compare it to anything else. Like, I'll be honest, I've never been like a Grateful Dead guy. That's not really my cup of tea.
Sure.
But I could listen to this for some reason. It's probably because of the subject matter, in my opinion.
Yeah, the track titles alone are going to make me listen to this.
and if you look up most Halloween playlists, 2 tracks are usually on it.
Yeah.
Night of the Vampire, which is a really droning, kind of almost predates doom metal. Like if you listen to any doom metal, that song, you could see how maybe a doom band could basically remake the song, kind of just, do a whole kind of reboot of Night of the Vampire, their own kind of doom metal version of it. Just listening to it, you could see the inspiration to stuff like that and horror and Halloween. You could see why one of his songs is featured in Return of the Living Dead. It's perfect. To me, it's a perfect album. 10 out of 10, like straight down. Like, I love it. I know it really well. Every song is catchy. I guarantee you'll be humming it an hour later after listening to it. So yeah, that's Rocky Erickson and the Aliens, The Evil One. Just perfect Halloween. Did you get to listen to any of this, George? If you didn't, it's okay.
I'm listening to it right now, actually. As
you are?
Yeah. And I dig it.
So there you go. It's good stuff, man. I guarantee if you listen to it, like to really stay focused, listen in your car or something, play it from beginning to end. You're going to be like, damn, Louis was right. Night of the Vampire, I Walked with a Zombie need to be on my Halloween playlist. I promise you, man, that you'll want to add those songs, and you'll agree with me. I think you'll come back around. You'll hit me with a DM like, Louis, that album is a good Halloween listen.
I'm always looking for like good Halloween party music too. So this is
it's good stuff.
This
man.
is definitely a good pick. Nice.
All right, what's your second pick?
My second pick is, I actually had the CD of this as a kid, but I can't find it, so I might have to rebuy it. But I bought the cassette version off eBay. And it's just a compilation record, one of those things where they just licensed a bunch of songs and put it on there, but it's called Monster Hits Volume 1.
Amazing.
Oh, yeah. It's got, Dracula and Frankenstein partying. They're having a good time. And it's got, track 1's The Monster Mash, Addams Family, Ghostbusters, the theme to Jaws, the Twilight Zone theme, Purple People Eater, Love Potion number 9, Werewolves of London. You got to put Warren Zevon on
That's
there.
A must.
Absolutely. Alfred Hitchcock Presents, which is actually, it says Arthur Fiedler and the Boston Pops, might even be the same version that was on the Classics from the Crypt.
Oh, wow.
And then, of course, to close, it was Toccata and Fugue in D minor. So great Halloween party track. Again, another one I played endlessly. And the one that introduced me to Warren Zevon, who's an artist I love.
There you go. It's funny back then in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
I don't think today because of obviously, music streaming services, but
Yeah.
I remember you'd walk into like a Party City. You could walk into like a drugstore and those compilation albums where anyone
Oh, the
could
best.
produce them. And you know what, I even like now, just obviously I'm older and about copyright. I always wanted to know how some of them were able to get the rights to a song like Ghostbusters because it's a big movie or something like
It
the Jaws
is.
theme.
Yeah. Well, they probably just did some, because you can do that now. You can do like covers and get like a little
Yeah.
licensing fee for it. This was just a matter of, they made a deal with the publisher. We're gonna, you'll get X percentage of this stuff in exchange for us, putting it out in a compilation CD. Or maybe even the company that did this is the company that owned all the syncs or all the publishing
Possibly.
rights to it. Yeah, possibly.
You're right, though. A lot of them, I remember some of them you'd buy the cassette or the CD, and it would be covers of like the Halloween theme.
Oh, it'd be terrible. Yeah,
it'd be horrible.
Really
Purple
cheap
People Eater.
MIDI
Just like-
sounding. Yeah.
Yes, really. I remember I had one. This was probably the early '90s, and this was I think a CD as well. It wasn't a cassette. And I remember I bought this at like a discount store, and I was with my grandmother. And I destroyed this CD because it was the first time I had a physical copy of the original John Carpenter Halloween theme.
Sure.
And I think I believe the Batman Danny Elfman theme was on it.
Hell yeah.
And I remember the CD sucked. Like, not didn't suck. Like the CD, the music on it was great, but like the cover was terrible. It was
yeah.
like this
Yeah.
really terrible jack-o'-lantern. It was not colorful.
Was it
wasn't
called
like that.
Mannheim Steamroller or something? Was that the
Maybe.
artist?
I don't even remember, but because I remember at one point I lost the cover but still had the CD and it was all scratched up, and it was probably one of the earliest CDs I bought as a kid that I
Wow.
could physically buy for like $6. Funny enough, it's a Halloween album. And I just remember it had, John Carpenter's Halloween, the main theme. It had the Batman theme. It had Ghostbusters, I think, was on it. But it was like bootleg versions of all those tracks.
That's
It was
hilarious.
like there were covers, and it was just really funny because I think at that time I didn't know. I'm like,
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah,
And
so it
now
sounds like it.
close enough.
Close
And I remember
enough.
I'd play it, and my sister would have like a nervous. I really bought it because I wanted the Halloween theme, and I'd play it, and my sister would have like a nervous breakdown because it would scare her. She'd be terrified.
Sure.
And I remember just playing it on repeat and just sitting and listening to these like really like dumb covers of songs from movies I love, and I just was oblivious to the fact that these were not the originals. Those albums are, I forget the name of the guy that at like Party Cities. It was always like Sam's party, Halloween party.
Yeah, it was
mix.
like
It's
Dave. I think it
Christmas.
was Dave. It was
You're
Dave's
right, I think.
Halloween party mix or something, or CD. Yeah,
And he
I
had
think we
one
had
for-
the same
yeah.
CD.
Probably. And he would have one for Halloween, for like the holidays, for like a St. Patrick's Day birthday mixes.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was, and people would spend like $30 or because CDs at that point were kind of expensive. Like 94, 95, the Sam Goody, like those days. And people would spend like $20-$30 on these. Like looking back
yeah.
at it now, they were pretty rough to listen to. But as
Oh,
a kid,
yeah.
you were like, "This is one of the best things in the world." They're all novelty albums, but they were just so good, and they warmed my heart to this day, dude. I go on eBay and I'll scour just looking for. I actually need to buy that one, the one this pick that you just selected, because I don't own a copy of it. So I'm
it's
gonna
great.
I'm gonna have to try to snag a copy on eBay.
I think it's called Drew's Famous Halloween
Drew's.
Party Music, and I think I found it on Google here. It's got like Bad Moon Rising, Staying
Yes.
Alive, Soul Man, like that has anything to do with Halloween, but it's got
I love
Soul
how-
in the title.
The Bee Gees. I'm assuming it's. I don't even know if it's really the Bee Gees performing it on that album.
Super Freak is
Yeah.
on there. Like, yeah,
Some make sense, like Staying Alive. All right.
Sure.
Again, I get why it would be on a Halloween playlist, but it's just funny how a song from Saturday Night Fever, I love Saturday
Yep.
Night Fever, but I just love how a song from that movie, that album, is in a Halloween like mix. So funny. So
It's
good.
so funny.
They're like bad in a great way, those albums.
Oh, yeah. It's perfect for Halloween.
They all
Perfect
had
for
Thriller
Halloween.
too. Like most of them had
course.
Thriller. Yeah.
And they all
You
had the
to have
Twilight
Thriller.
Zone
Yes.
theme and Monster Mash, of course. You know.
All the go-to, like you could, even now, I'll be honest, whenever I see a Halloween playlist, I'll usually skip Thriller or Ghostbusters. Because
Oh, yeah.
how many
Those
times?
are so played out. Yeah.
How many times can I hear those on the, even on the radio, they play them like in October. It's just,
Oh, yeah.
it's funny how those are the songs that are the go-tos for like
The Mariah
40
Carey
years.
of Halloween.
Yes. Ghostbusters, Thriller, and what's the last one? I'm trying to think. What would be the last one?
Probably the
on
Monster
there?
Mash, honestly.
Yes. I
Yeah.
will.
Ubiquitous.
That one I'll let slide. I never get tired of listening
I
to
love the Monster Mash, yeah.
So do I. I'll never get tired of the Monster Mash. Okay. My last pick, and I will admit, this is kind of my basic bitch pick of the two. All right. We just mentioned Halloween. We mentioned John Carpenter's main Halloween theme. I love it. That entire album I also own on vinyl. It's over there. I'm not going to grab it. I've got, I think, 3 releases of it. Nice. Unnecessary, but I own three separate record vinyl releases of it. I think I own an original and like 2 repressings of it from, I forget what, I think Mondo and some other one. I will admit this now. That album, from beginning to end, is probably on my Halloween playlist. I love it. I love the original John Carpenter score. Halloween, one of my favorite movies of all time. Probably my favorite. I've said it on the show before. It is probably a safe bet my favorite film of all time. If I have to give like a generic answer to someone, if someone's interviewing me, I'm like, Halloween. Safe, just to say it's Halloween because I've seen it so many times, know it so well. I think that score is perfect, minimalist. It's all piano. It's really not much else to it. It's just him by himself. I love the story behind him just kind of going to the studio. I think he knocked it out in like a day. Mm-hmm. He needed a score, didn't have a score, went in there, basically composed all this music, and then plugged it into the movie. And that's it. And when you listen to it, you could hear imperfections. You could hear kind of how lo-fi it was. Yeah. Especially when you listen to more like not remastered versions of it, which I also have. Like I think the original version's not remastered. Some of the later ones you listen to are remastered. Because I think, and I know I'm going off on a tangent here on the Halloween score, but I think one of the versions most people know has like a drum beat on it. That's not the original version. There's like a doof, 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 and then the theme. That's not the original version. When you watch the movie, it's just the piano, and that's it. It's just John Carpenter on the piano. Mm-hmm. So I think that was released later, and that's kind of the version people know. So yeah, love the Halloween score, but big but here. I will admit that I love the Halloween 2 score.
Oh, there you go.
The Halloween 2, 1981. Funny enough, both my picks here, 1981. Strange coincidence there. Didn't do that on purpose. This is a Death Waltz release. I bought this a long time. I don't even think I think this is hard to find. I think I might be wrong in this one. But you've got Michael Myers here with his nurse hat, which I love, and the bleeding eyes. But this was John Carpenter taking the original score and basically with Alan Hallworth, I believe is how you pronounce his last name, fully producing the music for a Halloween film. And when you listen to it, and don't worry, it's obvious why I like this as a Halloween album. You know, I don't think I have to defend myself too much. Technically, it's not a Halloween album; it's a score to a movie. But to me, this, I guess, the sequel score is more atmospheric. There's more layers to it. It's darker. It's creepier. Much like the movie, it's more brooding. Michael Myers is just like, Halloween 2, he's killing everyone in that movie in grotesque ways. Hammers, syringes, scalpels. There's a huge body count when compared to the first movie. And I think the score kind of represents that in the movie. It's just a more intense version of the same exact music from the first movie, because it really is. Minus, I think, There's one track called Flats in the Parking Lot that's not in the original score. Like that's not, there's no title, there's no name, there's no song or no piece of music with that title. And even like, in my opinion, Laurie's theme is a better piece of music than the original Halloween theme. I've always been a sucker. I'll never get tired of that Laurie theme from the first movie. And I think Halloween 2, that version is even better. Same thing with the shape stalks again. The dun, dun,
Yeah.
dun. It's better in the second one. And I still love the first one, don't get me wrong. But I just think Alan Hallworth added, like him producing this album and producing the music with John Carpenter, just, they made a better score. Like obviously he had help instead of it just being him by himself scoring a movie. Plus he didn't direct Halloween 2, so he had a lot more time, I guess, to kind of just focus on this. Yeah, you know, Rick Rosenthal directed the second one. So I think, you know, outside of writing the script, which he did write the script for the sequel, he just had to focus on scoring it, you know? And I'll say Halloween 3 as I don't have it with me, my copy's in there, but Halloween 3 too, I'd also put that, I'd lump that up with this because they also produced that together, and that's a fantastic score, and that also reminds me of the Halloween season and nostalgia. Both of these fucking scores, I think, when it comes to like, nostalgia, Halloween as a holiday and the films, I love it, man. Are you familiar with the second film score? Have you listened to that?
I've certainly seen the movie. I don't know if I've listened to the score on its own.
I recommend it, man. Like, you know, I'm sure you've got some of the, you know, original music from the first film in your Halloween playlist.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure. We all do.
Yeah.
I'd
There's
say
a lot of John Carpenter for sure.
Yeah, I'd say take a crack at, you know, giving this a listen. Like, you know, just give it a listen and just, you know, see where maybe you'll get what I'm talking about. Maybe I'm not articulating it here properly, but I just think it's a meaner version of that first score. And I love it, dude. And I think I have both of them in my Halloween playlist. Like, again, select all, dump them into the Halloween playlist. But there's just something about that second original sound, like score, soundtrack, or whatever, that I love. I love, man. It's just so good. It's so good. John Carpenter is he was. Some of his newer stuff I'm not a big fan of, but he was so good at one point. And I get why an entire scene of people are ripping him off now, but like he was good. He was good. I don't think there'll be no one else will ever be able to touch what he did with any of these scores, with The Fog and again, They Live. And I know he didn't score The Thing, but he's redone the music in The Thing, and it sounds. I forget what's the name of that guy's name, the Italian guy, and I can't pronounce it. It begins with an E and an M.
Ennio Morricone.
There you go. He's fucking excellent too.
Oh yeah, so, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, all that stuff.
Yeah, man, great stuff. So yeah, Halloween 2, the score, 1981. Dare I say, better than the original 1978 score, in my opinion. No one attack me for that. So those are some Desert Island Halloween albums. George, thank you so much for joining me. It was a pleasure. Where can people find you? And I'm gonna tell you right now, you'll be back on in the future. I guarantee.
Oh, I hope so. Thank you, man. Yeah,
I hope you had a good time.
I did. This was great. I love talking about anything Halloween. Any chance to talk about Halloween, I jump at. So.
Well, this was kind of like the introduction. So next time you're on, it'll be just Halloween talk for an hour.
Perfect.
So I'll definitely I'll have you on in the future. I'm sure you've got some future projects lined up and things happening.
Yeah, I do.
Where can people find you and Music of the Macabre?
Yeah, so you could follow me on Instagram at George Streicher, or you could follow Music of the Macabre on Instagram at Music of the Macabre. The vinyl, there are vinyls available only in store here in Burbank at Mystic Museum and at Dark Delicacies, but I do have an exciting announcement coming hopefully soon for this fall. I have some cool stuff happening
for the spooky season.
for the
Perfect
spooky
timing.
season.
Ooh, very, very good. Yeah, keep an eye out. Check George out. Support the guy. He's doing good stuff in the Halloween album music composing community. Support the guy. Show him some love.
Thanks, man.
And be sure to subscribe. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Haunted Hangover. Head over to hauntedhangover.com for links to everything, including our Patreon page, where you can gain access early to episodes of the podcast, bonus content, and much more. Rate and review us. That'd be greatly appreciated. And as always, remember, the best cure for a hangover is
more booze.
Catch you guys later.